lot of people ask us why our plugins have some latency. Master Plan has a lot of latency. Fuel, there's a live mode and a not live mode. And in general, people want to know this about their plugins. People think that if a plugin is high latency, it's using more processing power, using more CPU. Those are separate things. A plugin can use a lot of CPU and have high latency, but it can also use latency as a way to lower the CPU usage. First, the reason that we have latency usually in plugins is that we want to do some kind of process or analysis where we need to know what's happening ahead of time. If we think about, for example, a limiter, which is meant to lower the volume of your audio when it gets too loud, there's going to be some sample, some bit of audio that goes outside of the range. If we don't want to distort it a lot, if we don't want to clip the top of it, we need to start reducing the volume before we get to that sample. So in order to do that, we have to look ahead. We can't look ahead. We only know what's at the cursor. When you hit play, it's running. So what we actually do is we buffer some of the sound. We're reading it at the cursor, and then we're doing some calculation, and we're not actually spitting sound out until we've had a little bit of space ahead of it. As a result, we then have to tell your DAW, Logic, Pro Tools, FL Studio, we have to say, hey, we're running 15 milliseconds behind. What that DAW will do is called latency compensation, where it moves all of the tracks so they line up, and like, this guy's lagging by 15 milliseconds, all right? So everybody just, so it's doing all of these measurements. That allows plugin manufacturers like us to look ahead of time and use that information to do a great thing to the sound. Now, the problem is that now the sound comes late out of your speakers, or maybe it's not in sync if you have a piece of actual live gear hooked up because that's playing live. And this causes a lot of confusion during all this stuff. But since we're making plugins for the mixing phase, at that point, all the tracks are on disc, and mostly you're just hitting play or pause and hearing things as they come through. Latency shouldn't be much of a problem at that part of the workflow. Most professionals don't really care that much as long as it's not obscenely large. However, if you're trying to do live tracking, let's say you're tracking a vocalist or keyboard or whatever, you're going to want very low latency because you're going to want to be able to play in time with the music. And so you either have to turn off those plugins or put them in a low latency mode. Like everything in music, it's very complicated and context aware. Just know that latency isn't necessarily a bad thing. High latency doesn't mean high CPU. If you're mixing, maybe let it go.